The voice of the verb. Active and passive voice. Voice is the form of a verb that takes to indicate whether the subject of the verb performs or receives the action. There are two types of voice. We have active voice and passive voice. Active voice indicates that the subject of the verb is active. Because the subject does or acts upon the verb in such sentences, the sentences are said to be in the active voice. These examples show that the subject is doing the verb's action. The dog jumped onto the boy. The dog is the subject, is doing the jumping verb. Christy will give a book report to the class. Christy is the subject, is doing the giving. Passive voice, the subject receive the actions of the verb. A by phrase indicates the doer of the action. Example, copies were provided by the head of the department. Were provided is considered passive because it indicates that the subject, copies, is receiving an action. Form of passive voice verbs. The passive voice requires a double verb and will always consist of a form of the verb to be and the past participle, usually the en, ed, and t form of another verb. Example, active, John baked the bread. Passive, the bread was baked by John. Was is a form of the verb be. Writers should be familiar with the forms of to be, often called linking verbs, so that they can easily identify the passive voice in their work. Review the forms of to be. Am, is, are, was, were, be, being, been. Note the forms of to be in the examples of the verb to kick in various forms of the passive voice. Is kick, had been kicked, was kicked, is going to be kicked, is being kicked, will be kicked, has been kicked, can be kicked, was being kicked, should be kicked. Now let's practice. Classify the following sentences whether they are in active voice or passive voice. Number 1, the basketball players greet their fans. Number 2, the last shot was made by Kobe Bryant. Number 3, mother bought a cake. Number 4, the termites were killed by the representatives from the anti-termite company. Number 5, polar bears wear jackets. So these are the answers for let's practice. Number 1, active. 2, passive. 3, active. 4, passive. 5, active.